So usually when I come up with these challenges, I need to see if they'd be interesting enough to make a video on. The way I do that is by doing a test run of the idea that I have. If it seems entertaining or engaging enough, great, everything's peachy. If not, then well, what's the point of turning it into content? That being said, this video was originally going to be a challenge on secret rings, and so far, none of the ideas I had lived up to my expectations. But I already knew what I was going to do for the sequel, so I decided to make the Black Knight video first, then work on secret rings later. It would have been nice to do these in chronological order, but I mean, it is what it is. Also, why did I settle on a no nunchuck challenge? Well, in the first game, the only thing we needed was a single Wiimote, but in the second game, the nunchuck needs to be attached. Instead of breaking tradition, we're going to be playing this like it's the first storybook game. Except we're holding the Wiimote upright instead of sideways, but that's beside the point. Is it possible to beat Sonic and the Black Knight without the nunchuck? Let's lay out the only rule. Don't use the nunchuck. All of our actions must be performed on the Wiimote. Yep, short and sweet. The goal of this run is to reach the final boss and defeat her without ever using the nunchuck. And of course, I'll be using the actual hardware for this, so no emulation, no save states, no— oh my goodness, that looks absolutely horrendous. You know, this might actually be the only Wii that explodes in 2023. Begin with the introductory level, Misty Lake. Every mission in this area acts as a tutorial for some of the basic gameplay elements. For instance, the first mission tries to teach us to move like a moron by using the analog stick on the nunchuck. Everyone knows that an expert will only need to use the more efficient and versatile A button to progress. Tapping A will cause Sonic to leap forwards. Jumping is done by holding A, and pressing it again mid-air will have us perform a slower but more controllable air dash. We can also press A after the air dash or a leap to swiftly land back on the ground. This will come in handy if we ever need to make any precise landings. That's how we go forward, but what if we need to move left or right? Well, let's pretend there's an enemy to the left. If we're close enough to them when we press A in the air, Sonic will use his homing attack. This will reposition us directly in front of the enemy, allowing us to proceed on the left side of the trail. Although we needn't worry about that right now. The first mission was pathetically easy. I know, shocking. With nothing to hurt us, tapping the A button was more than enough to reach the goal. Now the second mission shows us the basics of guarding. This action allows us to safely block just about anything that can hurt us. There's one teensy-weensy problem. Guarding is designated to the Z button on the nunchuck. Even though attacking and evading are still good options, not having immediate protection will make things more difficult for us. We'd have to get a little creative and figure out how to overcome certain obstacles, like the wild boar stampedes. The only way to defeat them is by guarding, so we have to find another way around them. Or should I say, above them. Sonic can effortlessly jump over the boars, but we shouldn't advance all willy-nilly, that might put us in a bad position. It's worth noting that each row has a different spawn point. If we inch our way up and wait for them to approach us, we can easily avoid them one row at a time. The last wave is a little tricky. Not including the first line, all of the boars rush towards us in tandem, and these wooden cutouts are making it hard for us to see in front of us. But this can easily be overcome by spawning the first line by itself, then landing in the middle of this apple trail to spawn the rest of them. Being this far back will give us enough time to react to Pumbaa's attacks. Then we can simply fly over the rest of them with a well-timed air dash. Now, couldn't we just plow through them and damage boost our way over? I mean, this isn't a don't get hit challenge. That's true, but I think we should save up on rings if we want a better chance at defeating the Mist Dragon. Yeah, 2 missions in and there's already a mini-boss. The bosses will really show how much of a hassle this challenge can be. With no analog stick, our options for movement are pretty much limited to moving forward or jumping upwards. Without being able to guard, we can't immediately protect ourselves or counter any attacks. In addition to those, each boss, except the 2 dragons, starts us with only 100 rings. That does sound like a lot, but each hit subtracts 20 rings from our total. If we have no idea what we're doing, we'll lose them all at the drop of a hat, so we're gonna have to brainstorm some kind of strategy if we want to stand a chance. Since we're stuck in one spot, we need to wait for this mythical beast to move its face towards us in order to deal any damage to it. The best way to fight it is by jumping, then swinging the Wiimote to have Sonic continuously spin around with his sword. The dragon only has one attack, which is slamming its head on the ground. If we jump underneath him as the attack is being executed, we will, surprisingly, be only pushed off to the side. That's because the shockwave it creates is the thing that hurts us. Jumping over it is our only way to dodge it, and if we time that right, we will completely avoid it. With all this in mind, we can easily slay the dragon and finish the level. Mission 3 is technically our first official boss battle, but if we're being real, this is just a lesson on QuickTime events. All we need to do is follow King Arthur, then copy whatever appears on screen. Repeat the sequence 3 times, that's really all there is to it. Our fourth and final practice mission is to wield the Sacred Sword. That's a fancier way of saying get to the goal. Aside from a few bores, this stage can easily be completed by tapping A. If you ask me, that's pretty boring, so I decided to slice as much as possible and managed to pull out 4 stars. Huh, that's cool. With all the beginner's missions out of the way, the second level, Castle Camelot, has been unlocked. Mission 1, which was just reaching the goal, was not difficult in the slightest. That's fine by me, because now we have access to the blacksmith shop. Now before starting a mission, we can, in a way, customize ourselves. There's only 2 things we can do at the moment, the first of which is being able to equip items. These items can be obtained on the identification screen that appears after completing or even failing a mission. Depending on how well we did will determine the amount we can identify. It's kinda like a gacha game without wasting your entire life savings. While there are many items to acquire, we'd only want to focus on the ones that have an in-game effect. More specifically, necklaces, medicine, and books. Most of them will increase our score when we do a specific action, which can actually come in handy. I'll explain why later. Others can help us out with identifying certain kinds of items, and if that item seems like it could be helpful, we definitely want an easier time acquiring said item. The second option is status, where we can, well, look at our status. Clicking on a style of swordsmanship will show us what abilities we have in that style. The more followers we have, the more abilities we unlock. We can gain followers by completing, recompleting, and even failing missions. The better we do in missions, the more followers we can gain from that playthrough. As of right now, we only have the Knight style. The Paladin and Cavalier styles aren't unlocked until much later in the game. The main thing I want for us are the gauge bonuses, which allow us to begin a mission with a bit of soul in our gauge. I got a feeling that will come in handy. You may be asking, what is this soul I speak of? I will explain that, right now actually. Missions 2 and 3 is where the game teaches us about a new move, Soul Surge. By collecting red fairies or defeating enemies, the soul meter in the bottom left corner will fill up. Once we can clearly see the bar, it means it's ready to be executed by pressing the B button. If we're close enough to some enemies, a red target will appear on top of the nearest one. Swing the Wiimote to defeat that enemy, and if another one is nearby, we can repeat the process until either we run out of bad guys to kill, or we run out of energy. However, there is one way to preserve it. Instead of foolishly shaking the Wiimote, wait for the red target to turn white, then swing the controller to hit the sweet spot. This is called a perfect hit. We'll know we've done it correctly if we hear this. As we can see, the bar is filling up when we time it perfectly. Soul Surge is another way we can reconfigure ourselves. It has a wider lock-on range than the homing attack, but we would need to use some energy in order to perform this. We should only reposition ourselves with this when absolutely necessary. The missions themselves were nothing to write home about, except for the fact that we got 2 5 stars. Since we practically mastered this skill, we've gained access to the next area, Deep Woods. Near the start, we ride atop a carriage as monsters chase us down. The only actions we can do up here are jump, which is useless, attack, and change our stance. The last one can only be done by moving the analog stick. I was a bit worried at first. With our body turned to the right, it only makes sense that our sword can't hit the hooligans jumping to our left. Thankfully, I was proven wrong. One clean swipe literally covers the whole area, meaning changing our stance is also useless. With that part out of the way, we can easily get to the end, but before arriving at our destination, Sir Lancelot challenges us to a duel! Usually when he's standing still, he will be ready to guard our attacks, so the best time to hit him is when he's approaching us. Jump into the air, then when Lancelot is about right here, Sonic should be close enough to execute the homing attack. Before we make contact, swing the controller to perform a homing spin attack. If timed correctly, Lancelot should not only take damage, but also fall on the ground. That part is crucial, because if we're fast enough, we can perform another homing spin attack, lowering his health even more. When he jumps back, we can anticipate him moving towards us, so we can repeat the process until he admits defeat. After besting the Knight of the Lake, we meet the Lady of the Lake. She gives us 3 tests to complete so we can basically prove ourselves pure of heart. The first of which was to free the innocent. Break into King Arthur's dungeon, then destroy all the gates. Second is defeating 50 Knights of the Underworld. Child's play. There's almost double that amount, and they all go down in a single hit. The final test is to offer compassion to those in need. To be more specific, the townspeople need to be given a certain number of rings. There's a hefty amount of rings at the start, and man do I wish giving it to them was any less annoying. Many enemies like to appear in these missions. Yeah, missions. We need to do this twice. Whenever they're nearby, the locals will cower in fear and refuse to partake in any trade offers. While getting rid of them, we need to make sure that we don't hit any pedestrians. If we so much as make a cut in their cloak, they will disappear and not return until restarting the mission. Also, the area to engage in the exchange is a little small. We kinda need to be breathing down their neck in order to commence it. Our jumps need to be precise so we don't overshoot them. Once we land in just the right spot, we can commence the bartering by pressing the Z button. Oh. I don't know about you, but I'm not totally convinced that we need to use it just because some icon tells us to. I think we can work our way around this. I have a few ideas that might just be enough to overcome this obstacle. As I stated before, items can be equipped to help us out in some way, shape, or form. I went online to do a little research, and after reading up on all 247 items, I have found only one that might be able to help us out with this situation. That being the necklace item, Bright Red Ribbon. Its description states, "Townspeople become easier to interact with when worn." I might just be reaching for the stars here, but I'm assuming it will allow us to trade with the villagers without pressing Z. Maybe getting close to them would be enough to trigger the encounter. Good thing I already put on the Tome of Amulets to make necklace purchases cheaper. Hopefully we can get lucky enough and retrieve it quickly. Right? For a solid 2 hours, we replayed the available levels, but there was no luck in obtaining the ribbon. Actually, we've hardly been getting any new items. Was it rigged, or was it something else that was preventing us from securing the item? After doing more research, I discovered the latter is true. This time I had the brilliant idea of looking up the name of the item, and what I found wasn't very pretty. The Bright Red Ribbon can only be obtained in Titanic Plain and Knight's Passage. 2 levels we don't even have access to yet. Ah well. That's alright. Even though the ribbon failed, I'm not out of ideas just yet. Like I said earlier, we can get new abilities as we gain more followers. Could there be an ability that can help us out here? Well, after even more research, I can confirm that there is one that would be perfect right now. Crest of the King. Its description reads, "Interact with townspeople by touching them." Ah, this'll be perfect for us. But there's a catch. We need to acquire proficiency level 10 in order to unlock it. Now, I'm not 100% certain on this, but I think we can increase proficiency level by gaining followers, and if we have enough, we can earn a new title. I think title is what they mean by proficiency level, but again, I'm not sure. Hold on, what does that say? Hang on, let me check something real quick. Okay, that's 5 stars, so if we subtract that, we will get... It's stars that increase proficiency. Oh, this is good. Okay, new strategy. We farm for stars until we reach level 10. That might be enough to unlock it. Give me another hour, I'll be back. Oh wow, that was quick. Now let's take a look at our status. It should be at the bottom. Oh, come on, it's faded. Although our proficiency is max level, I think the reason we don't have the ability is because we haven't reached a high enough level. As of right now, we are a valiant warrior with 1,559 followers. Only 941 more until we reach the next one. Due to each mission giving a restricted amount of followers, this will be the last time we can gain a new title before running out of missions. I really hope this is enough. Before we start grinding, let's go back to the good old smithy and equip some items that could give us extra points. After all, a higher score will result in more followers, making this grind session go by quicker. We shall put on the String of Pearls to give us more points when we collect fairies. Now we'll fast forward to a few hours later. We just gotten to the point where we have every follower from all the available levels except the 2 townspeople missions. That may seem bad, but we can still gain followers even if we fail a mission. So by continuously reaching the goal, we can increase our follower count. Only much slower. With enough time and patience, we finally reached 2,500 followers and acquired a new title. Now, all we do is wait for the moment of truth. Oh! It's beautiful. Oh my goodness, we can finally move on. Alright, let's put this baby into action. What? Hang on, I need actual movement to test this out real quick. This does not count towards the challenge. What on earth? We have the ability. Why isn't it working? This can't be right. I refuse to believe that it just does not work. There has to be a reason. I'm on something, anything. What's this, Sonic Stadium? I think you might have gotten a bad title recently. If memory serves correctly, if the first title you have on that thing that shows how many followers you have is a bad title, then the crush won't work. You mean this? Wait, I thought this was a title, not... You know what, there are 2 kinds of titles in this game, I'm just gonna have to deal with that. I still don't even know what these are. Hold the phone, aren't those the last few things in the treasury? Let me see. Name given to a knight who has harmed those he has sworn to protect. Oh, okay, I think I get it now. If we do something more valiant, like defeating enemies without being reckless or with fewer attacks, we will be given a good title. But going against the knight code, like slashing an opponent with their back towards us or hurting too many civilians, will result in a bad title. The 3 most recent titles we collect will appear on our card. It's probably not a card, but that's what I'm calling it, and since we have one of the bad ones on our card, the ability is not taking effect. Now, we could get more good titles, so the bad one would be removed, but we already have 4 of the 5 good titles, meaning that red dot isn't going anywhere. So, the solution? Begin a brand new save file and restart from scratch. Yep, that's gonna take about half the day. Except for, I really hope you remembered correctly because, my mental state might be on the line. During this new save file, we can't be careless. The game is going to have our undivided attention so we can at least attempt to get past these 2 missions. These are the 5 bad titles. There's 2 things we need to keep an eye out for to avoid having any of them on our permanent record. First, always pay attention to the text on the left side of the screen. If we perform an action that a noble knight would do, they will be red. We want to make sure that it stays that color. If blue words pop up, that means we've done something villainous. Now, seeing this once isn't bad, but performing that same action multiple times during the same mission is a bit worrisome. If we're not feeling confident in that run, we can simply restart the mission to reset everything. And second, when we finish a mission, look at the top right corner of the card and make sure we have 3 good titles. If we've done too many sinister acts, we will have a bad title on our card once the level ends. That sounds like a death sentence, I know, but there's still time to save ourselves. The game doesn't save until after we finish identifying the items on the next menu. With that in mind, we're able to open the Wii menu and restart the software to remove it from our card and redo the mission correctly. Now we just do that for 6 hours straight. We have just re-unlocked Crest of the King. This better be it. I'm using the nunchuck again for testing purposes. Again, this does not count towards the challenge. Wait. There's no quick time event. It's instant. Oh my goodness, we're finally free. We're finally free. And free is the best way I can describe these two missions. Just kill the bad guys, then land next to the townspeople. It's that simple. These two missions took me almost the entire weekend. I'm gonna go to the Chow Garden to relieve some stress. Feel free to join. Titanic Plains. Mission 1 introduces us to a new kind of enemy, the Giants. These guys can grab us if we get too close to them. In order to wiggle out of their grasp, we need to move the analog stick back and forth. At least that's what the game is telling us to do, but repeatedly pressing the A button is just as useful. This may happen often since they have the most health out of all of the enemies, so an alternate way to take care of them is by hitting them with Soul Surge 3 times. This is also where we wall climb for the first time. Repeatedly press A to ascend and do nothing to descend. In addition, we can move left and right by using that nasty analog stick. As long as we only have to move vertically during these parts, everything will be okay. Near the end of the level, there are 2 rows of stone pillars. Sonic is skinny enough to squeeze through the first set, but not the second set. He can't fit into any of the openings, not even the big hole at the bottom. Well, we are wielding a giant sword. We may as well use it. Huh, that's cool. After reaching the goalpost, a mysterious silhouette appears before us. Hold on, is that the subscribe? That kinda looks like the like button. It can't be. John Cena? Oh, it's only Gawain. The way we beat him is a bit different. Instead of avoiding his attacks, we want to get hit. I know that sounds stupid, but let me explain. Gawain will throw out 2 slow swipes, then follows that with a flurry of swipes. He will hit us on the first swipe, giving us long-lasting invincibility frames so we can react while he's attacking. As the flurries come out, jump into the air, then perform a homing spin attack. Usually when we clash into each other, a quick time event will ensue. The timing may be strict, but once we know the pattern, we should come out on top. Pulling these off successfully is super important as they take away about 1/3 of his health. Triumphantly doing 3 in one match will be enough to dishonor the Knight of the Sun. Now we can enter Crystal Cave. Nothing to say about the first mission, but the second mission, now that one's a doozy. We need to rescue 5 townspeople. They are trapped inside of these crystal prisons, and the only way to break them out is by shining a light on them. The good news, there's a total of 6 ragamuffins, so we are allowed to skip one. The bad news, pretty much everything else. This mission has branching pathways. We would have to find a way to redirect ourselves to the route we need to go and remember which routes we've already taken. Combining that with our limited movement will not be an easy task. We'd also need to line Sonic up correctly in order to reflect the light. Although, for the most part, that isn't a huge issue. Both Sonic and the stream of light are usually in the middle of the path, so it's just about landing close enough to the luminescence. The times where we need to reposition Sonic directly behind it may be a bit annoying. I'd recommend using Soul Surge when doing that. The target lets us know which enemy it's locked onto, and we can cancel it when we think we've chosen the right one. The enemies also don't respawn once they've been killed, so we would need to do some of these on our first or second try. Within a few attempts, I managed to find the best route to take, although pulling it off successfully took a number of tries. First, at the beginning are 2 paths. The game will automatically steer us off to the left one, which is where our first crystal is located. Kill the enemies, land in the light, then quickly reflect it to the top of the crystal. We want it up there because the light doubles as an attack, and we'd want the knight on the left to be alive. Once the villager is free, immediately use Soul Surge. Defeating the left enemy should be enough to bring us down the left path. After some traveling, we find our second beam of light. Use a well-timed air attack to destroy the boxes while also landing in the light. There's a small bit of the crystal sticking out from the side of the boxes. Point the light in that direction to rescue the second villager. Next is a big open area with another crystal at the end. Use Soul Surge again to reposition Sonic to the leftmost enemy. We don't want to perform the homing attack, so instead, tap A to leap forwards, then tap it again to land in the light, allowing us to free the third townsperson. From this point onwards, the level will loop until we finish the mission. We find the first branching pathway again, but this time the game doesn't redirect us, we stay in the middle. Although it looks like we're stuck on this rock, repeatedly pressing the A button will shimmy us over to the right side where we can easily shatter the fourth crystal. Leap forward to take the road on the left. We aren't totally aligned with the beam, so using Soul Surge to ever so slightly move ourselves to the left will be just enough to interact with the light and release the last villager. With that tedious mission out of the way, there's one last thing to do in the caverns: defeat 50 enemies. Although there are many townspeople in here, it doesn't matter if we hit them or not. I mean, morally it's still wrong, but there are no more mandatory missions where the Crest of the King ability needs to be used, so we can be as barbaric as we want since there are no consequences. Leaving Crystal Caves, we set forth to our next location, Molten Mine. After the first railroad, the game introduces us to a wall-hugging section. This is problematic because here we can only move with the analog stick and our air dash doesn't travel far enough. My original solution was to change from the Knight style to the Cavalier style. Cavalier will increase our base speed at the cost of some power. Not only that, there's an ability exclusive to this style that could help us out here: Turbo Jump, which increases the speed of the jump dash. We could use that to travel farther, but the thing is, the Cavalier style isn't unlocked until after we beat Percival, which is literally the mission right after this one. So that one's out of the question. Maybe we could perform Soul Surge. Now, up to this point, it's only been used to kill enemies. What would happen if we attack when there are no enemies to lock onto? Sonic will perform the closest thing this game has to a boost. We will continue to run until we're close enough to an enemy, our gauge empties, or when a few other scenarios happen. So, knowing this, would it be enough to travel across this thin ledge? Well, I'll be, it worked. About halfway through the level is a railroad track that runs above a pit of lava. For absolutely no reason, this specific section is off rails. I mean, there are rails, you know what I mean. While this seems like a hindrance, we can use this to our advantage. The left railing leads us to the next part of the level, so without boundaries right here, we can easily land on it to continue. Then if we have enough juice in our soul gauge, we can speed across the last ledge, reach the goal, and fight the Knight of the Grail, Sir Percival. Instead of charging in, she will wait for us to make the first move so she can counter us with one of her attacks. Or really, just one attack. She loves to spam this fire ring, which, by the way, is ludicrous. She's invulnerable before and while executing the move, and not only does it last for a long time, but it hits above and below the ring. Weirdly enough, this is one of the attacks we need her to use. After performing the move, Percival will not do anything for a long period. Although avoiding this is futile, we can use the invincibility frames to attack her, which will usually knock her down, giving us some free damage. The other move to look out for is her special. When she surrounds herself in the tornado, use Soul Surge, then keep performing the perfect hits for as long as possible. Those are really the only two ways to keep her in check, and with enough patience, she too bows her head in shame. With all three Knights of the Round Table defeated, we can now properly dispatch the king. If you, get my drift. As we chase Arthur down, he will randomly choose one of his 3 new attacks. The purple lightning could paralyze us for a few seconds, his sword slashes are straight up unavoidable, and the red orbs can be reflected back towards him. We want him to use that last one because it's the easiest way to fill up our soul gauge, and Soul Surge is how we inflict damage on him. If he uses the other 2, we may have to take a hit. Speaking of taking a hit, we shouldn't trail too far behind him, otherwise he'll charge directly towards us, which is also undodgeable. The best way to defeat him is to aim for a 5-star ranking. That sounds ridiculous, especially since we can hardly move on our own, but let me explain. Wait for Arthur to throw the red orbs, then fill up the soul gauge by sending them back towards him. Once we get close enough to him, jump into the air and use Soul Surge. This will trigger 6 QuickTime events, and we need to do all of them successfully in order to move on to the next part. Now, right here's where the game gets ya. At this point, I'm sure most of us will start mindlessly hacking and slashing until the soul gauge depletes, and then we'd have to keep repeating everything until he decides to give in. That is the incorrect way to fight King Arthur. See, how we're supposed to defeat him is by waiting for the red target to turn white so we can perform the perfect hit. What's that? You don't see the red target? Well, believe it or not, this boss utilizes that mechanic even though it is invisible. So it's not something we see, rather, it's something we feel. I learned about this while I was looking up a 5-star ranking for this boss, so thank you very much, Penguin TM. You've managed to save both my time and my sanity. After the final QuickTime event, swing the Wiimote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. Striking 10 perfect hits in a row will bring death upon the monarch. Long live the king! Hold it, we ain't done yet! At this point in the story, it is revealed that King Arthur was nothing more than an illusion, and Merlina is the big twist villain. She starts creating her ideal kingdom, causing the whole castle to collapse. We have to escape through the Knight's Passage. It was easy, there's nothing really to talk about except for that gorgeous view. Wow, I could look at that all day. Now here's where things get interesting. Everyone's swords needs to be positioned in the far outskirts of Camelot, meaning the 3 Knights of the Round Table are now playable characters. Each of them play a little similar to Sonic with a couple of key differences. I'll go into them in a few minutes. When we beat one of those levels, a cutscene will play showing one of our heroes placing their sword in the stone. Personally, I think it would be most fitting to match everyone with their respective cutscene, so Lancelot will travel to Shrouded Forest, Gawain goes to Great Megalith, Percival has the Cauldron, and Sonic enters the Dragon's Lair. I've also equipped everyone with the Healing Potion and/or Healing Draughts. Most of these are not easy, so reviving with rings will definitely come in handy. Let's begin with Shrouded Forest. Lancelot is basically Sonic with a new coat of paint. I know there are differences, but most of them are more or less alterations. Like his soul ability, Chaos Punishment is just a slower version of Sonic's Soul Surge. We really don't have anything new to work with, which would have been nice to have because some things in this level gets on my nerve. Thorny vines will sprout from the ground in many areas. Although these are generally easy to get past, there will be a few times where taking a hit is harder to avoid. We also have slapping trees, which is quite possibly the bane of my existence. They usually appear in comically large numbers, their attacks take up more area than they should, and while we can cut the branches, a lot of the times they will hit us first for some reason. Boosting through with Soul Surge works just fine, but if we're out of juice, well, try not to get hit. And to make it even worse, the rings in this level are spread out sparsely. That's the main reason why I equipped those items. With enough trial and error, we can make it to the goal. Great Megalith is up next. Gawain has the power of flight. That is literally all we need to know about him. For real, 90% of the time I was soaring like an eagle. Every level is easy with this guy. Third on the list is the Cauldron. The first half of this level has a number of large fiery pits that we have to jump across. Percival doesn't have Gawain's flight, but she has the next best thing. If no enemies are nearby, she can perform a double jump followed by an air dash. Combine both of those with her air attack, we shouldn't have too much trouble clearing them. After making it over 3 of them, we surf upon a pool of lava. Since we can't control where we move with the analog stick, we'll have to tank 1 hit. Aside from that, this part is very simple. The following path has some geysers shooting from the ground. Touching them isn't inherently bad, but this will summon a horde of enemies. Obviously, we'd want to avoid them. And the final portion is a short rock climbing section. Ah, we have to go to the right. We overcame many obstacles before. I'm sure there's somewhere around this. Is there an item that could help us out? How about a useful ability? Not even on the other 2 styles? What about boosting? That helped us out before. Could we use Soul Surge while climbing? I remember enemies will spawn here. We could climb with A and then travel to the right with B. Are we able to move horizontally with the other characters? Game. Come on, don't do this to us. We've come so far. Why would you roadblock us this late into the run? There's gotta be another way. Come on, you stupid gear, turn! Wait! I got it! I remember a couple of comments have suggested looking up a speedrun if we ever got stuck. That is just such a genius idea, like, I can't believe I never thought of it. Like, I swear, these guys somehow find a way to finish a game in under a minute. Just imagine the skips in this game. They're gonna be insane. Okay, I think it would be pretty lame to end the video right now. We have come a long way, plus I am having fun with this one. So let's move to the right using the analog stick. Then from here, we can complete the rest of the level with only the Wiimote. As of right now, there is only one moment where the nunchuck is absolutely necessary. Let's try and keep it that number. Our final stop is the Dragon's Lair. This level has two cheeky things to look out for. When we see a bridge, wait for a few seconds. Parts of it will collapse. All of the jumps can be made with ease, even when we're not right next to the ledge. This will only happen at the beginning and the end of the stage. In the middle, we must run across multiple electric wires. They will disappear if we're moving too slowly. Running with Soul Surge solves our problem, we just need to make sure there is enough at our disposal. Knowing these two things, we make it to the end in one piece, but we're not done with the Dragon's Lair just yet. Unlike the other three levels, there is a required boss fight against the Earth Dragon. We don't actually start with a battle, there is a small bit of traveling beforehand. This will be the perfect time to grab as many rings as we possibly can. Whenever we enter the arena, we need to make our way to the Drake all the way at the end of the tunnel. During the first phase, our Scaly Savage will spit massive fireballs directly towards us. Because of our gauge bonus ability, we already have soul in our meter. We can use that to boost all the way over to his face, then slash his horn 3 times. In phase 2, it will place orbs that will shoot miniature fireballs. There may be a lot of them, but as long as we're attacking, we shouldn't get hit. Actually, there are plenty of enemies scattered along the pathway. We should be attacking to refill our soul gauge. Once there are no enemies in front of us, use the boost again and repeat the process. The final phase looks incredibly threatening. The fireballs, the orbs, and the enemies all happen simultaneously, and this time it has a little more health. After 3 slashes, it will push us back near the center where we need to reach him 2 more times. Again, seems frightening, but if we're quick enough, we can slay the Drake before we run out of rings. Now with all the swords in their correct location, the blue blur transforms into Excalibur Sonic, and we face off with the Dark Queen herself, Merlina. Since we can't move 360 degrees, the only way to get around this place is by dodging, which is assigned to the Z button and the A button. Let me rephrase that, we can only travel to the right. In fact, Sonic is already meandering over that way. I don't think nunchucks can drift like a Switch Joy-Con, so I think the game is just doing that on its own. Most of her projectiles can be obliterated by thrashing about the Wiimotes. Although we shouldn't do that for the entire fight, we need to look out for the quick time events. If timed correctly, it will fill up our soul gauge halfway through, which is more than enough. Then execute Soul Surge. Just like in King Arthur's rematch, we need to successfully land several perfect hits in a row. Again, there is no visible target, so we just gotta feel for it. The timing is a bit different here. We need to swing the controller much quicker to hit the sweet spot. Once we've gotten into the groove of hitting it consistently, we now have to keep this up for 3 phases, which was rather uncomplicated. As much as I'd love to make this sound epic, we did this on our first try. With one final blow, we absolutely decimate Her Majesty, concluding the main story. No, it is sadly not possible to beat Sonic and the Black Knight without the nunchuck. there is one little tiny obstacle that refrained us from truly having a satisfying victory. But we only used it once throughout the entire game. That's still impressive. Good on us. Good on us. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please continue to have a great day. Hello! This is the outro bit. Next video, of course, is going to be neat things in The Black Knight, but after that, it's not going to be a challenge, but I just want to make another video about my favorite game again. That's, yeah. You can all make your guesses on what that is. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, thank you, bye!